There's a report out there that you've lost the locker room. Do you have any response to that? And would you even know if you've lost the locker room?
Yeah, I would know. I talk to these guys every day. I see them every day. And no, I have not lost the locker room. I think these guys have done everything I've asked. They continue to play and practice hard and battle, and you know, it's a good group. It's a good group. The right leaders in there, and they know what we need to do, and you know, they're not making excuses for it, and I'm not going to make excuses, and we just got to go do it.
And then on Sunday, you called a question about your job security a strange question. Why did you find that strange? I mean, 0-4, 9 of 10, quarterbacks regressed. I mean, there's a lot of issues going on.
I mean, that's a good question, you know. But I think you know, obviously you're gonna go through some setbacks, you know, in this league, and there's gonna be some times where you know, you're gonna come on some hard times. I mean, that's just part of this game. I mean, if you really look at these games, you know, like with a calm eye and study the tape and see. I mean, there's mistakes. Yeah, there's mistakes. Are they critical at times? Yeah, they're critical at times. But there's a lot of good, as we talked about the other day, and you know, that's what we have to lean on, and we just got to continue to work.
Mike Renner and Leger Douzable joining us now. We hear from Doug Peterson. Says there's a lot of good on the tapes. I don't know what that good looks like when you're not getting a win, but you just hear from Peterson, and it just sounds like a guy that I don't know. Leger, I'll start with you. Like, is that a guy that you think really knows? Okay, my time is coming up.
I mean, I think he knows it. It's tough. You're not going to go out there and admit that as a head coach. And when you look at it, like I stated before the Buffalo Monday night game, that I felt like this could be the beginning of the end with Doug Peterson in Jacksonville, right? When you look at it, Trevor Lawrence as a starting quarterback has lost 9 straight games for them, right? And Doug Peterson has really struggled to bring out the best Trevor Lawrence. Now, what I will say, Zach and Mike, is that he's actually right when you talk about he can't go out there and make plays, because there are plays to be made on the field. Trevor Lawrence is completing 53% of his passes. That's not good in the NFL. And then it's the misses that Doug Peterson was alluding to, right, in pivotal moments of the game. I go back to last week versus Houston. Double move, Brian Thomas, great route, wide open in the end zone, sails the ball on him. You get Christian Kirk on a over route, wide open, sails the ball. That's not on Doug Peterson or the play calling. That's on the players in the locker room. But Mike, being in the league for 10 years, one thing you can't do as a head coach is blame the players out there in the press conference. That's the easiest way to lose the locker room. As a head coach, your job is to take that on the chin. Now, behind closed doors, guys, the players are there. The plays are there. We have to make them. But out there in the press conference, no matter how defeated you feel, you do not call your players out and roll them over with a bus. And that's essentially what Doug Peterson has done. So to me, he is on borrowed time. I stated this 2 weeks ago before the Buffalo game. But adding that press conference when he essentially calls out his players for not making plays, yeah, you're most likely losing the locker room when you do that.
Here's the thing, though. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong.
The talent, I look up and down this roster, the talent's not there. They're 0-4 for a reason. It's because they've been the worst side in all 4 of those games. Just going and looking. And I think it starts at the top in the GM. He's not the only number one overall pick in that locker room not playing well. Trayvon Walker is a no-show more often than not. The guys they signed in free agency this offseason, Gabe Davis, Eric Armstead, Darnell Savage. Why did they give all this money to these guys when they're not out there making plays? I think that's the biggest thing that I look at with this team. It's just that they have a lot of top picks. They have a lot of guys they've given a lot of money to. And none of them are living up to it, not just Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, but Mike, I feel it's a QB-driven league. We go by the QB, and Trevor Lawrence just has not been good. But this is the guy that it feels like not that long ago there was so much hype and promise with him, but he's not showing that. What happened?
It's tough to say exactly pinpoint where, but I mean, we go from that comeback in the playoffs, one of the largest comebacks in playoff history against the Chargers, to midway through last season. I think last season the injury did affect him. I know he played through it, but I think that was a big part of it. But this year, it's just the accuracy. I mean, he's playing quarterback from like a decision-making, from a footwork, from an operating the pocket perspective. He's playing it at a high level. He just missed throws left and right. I don't know what that is. That to me is like the yips. It seems like a mental thing, and it will get helped when you have more guys open. I think that's the other thing. It's just like outside of Brian Thomas Jr., not a lot of people are creating space for themselves in this offense.
Hey, you just look at this graphic right here. I alluded to this earlier, Zach. 0-9 in his last starts. And Mike, you brought up a good point. I'm so glad that you actually brought up that 2022 season, because I was just talking to our producer, Tully. I think people make a big point of that too many times, right? Because things actually had to go right for them to go on that win streak. When you look at that playoff game, an abysmal first half versus the Chargers, right? I believe it was 4 interceptions he threw in that first half. Any other team, if they have an apt head coach, beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in that game. So, like, a lot of luck had to roll his way. And then when you look at the deal that he just signed, where he's getting $55 million a year, right? And it's based off of people saying the potential that he has. Mike, we're at a point now where I don't want to hear about potential when you're getting paid $55 million. Your job as the quarterback is to make it work. And I know you said, like, they're talent deficient here or there. It seems like him and Christian Kirk are finally starting to get on the same page. But you're right. It's the accuracy issues for me. You're getting paid $55 million. You can't miss guys wide open in the red zone. You can't miss out on explosive plays across the middle of the field when guys are open by 10 yards. Like, that's on the quarterback position. So, yes, again, people will say Doug Peterson shouldn't have said what he said in the press conference. But to me and Mike's point, he's 100% right. Guys aren't making plays out on the field. So, again, your job as a leader, as a head coach, is to keep everybody together. Once you do that, that's when you start getting some dissension and you get guys breaking up in the locker room. Guys start finger pointing when the coach starts finger pointing at the players, or players start finger pointing at the coach. It doesn't look like things are going to be good anytime soon in that Jacksonville locker room. But again, when you're Trevor Lawrence, you're getting paid $55 million. You can't miss wide open throws.
You're getting the stadium named after you with Trevor Bank Field put out there in Jacksonville as well. Mike, is there a coach you can think of that maybe might be that right fit to tap into the full potential of what we think Trevor Lawrence has?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's going to point to an offensive coach just from what they've struggled with. I think the two guys that come to mind based off what I've seen this season so far, one, Ben Johnson. I mean, you just saw the number of layups that Jared Goff had in that offense on Monday night, going 18 of 18. Yeah, maybe Trevor misses a couple of those, but also, like, he hit some of those, too.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, I think, Clint Kubiak, I've been very impressed with what he's done in resurging this New Orleans Saints offense, because their offensive line is no better than Jacksonville's, but they've schemed around it.
Right.
I think that's the biggest thing I worry about with this Jags team going forward, is that the offensive line's not good enough, and they're not doing enough to help them. And so they're just saying, how do we help them? Trevor Lawrence, you go make that play. So I think that's the problem that we see with Jaguars, and they just need someone to come in that can scheme around and mitigate what they have up front.
To your point, I'm glad you brought up Ben Johnson, because the offensive line he has is one of the best in football. Yeah. So they're able to marry the run game and the pass game well. When you go to Jacksonville, that's not going to be the case, because the offensive line has not played well in Jacksonville. Clint Kubiak makes a lot of sense. I think Bobby Slowick, from a divisional rival, the Houston Texans, we saw what he's done with C.J. Stroud, makes a lot of sense. But also, like, I felt like last week was the first time the run game was actually getting going for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think Tank Bigsby had his best day as a Jacksonville Jaguars. Even Travis Etienne, which that was a whole weird scenario of Trevor's not starting that game and Tank starting that game. But they actually ran the ball effectively. So it's like, to me, when you look at Jacksonville in totality, that was probably their most complete game, and it was still in a losing effort. Yeah. So that says a lot when you look at a team that was able to actually take pressure off their quarterback by running the football, but because of the accuracy issues, they still lost the game.
A game, it seems like that they have to win this Sunday when they host the Colts, and we'll see kind of what happens out there.